Welcome to an exploration of one of the most fascinating aspects of Japanese culture, the world of yokai. These supernatural entities have shaped Japanese folklore for centuries, representing everything from shape-shifting animals and living household objects to strange phenomena and spirits. Today, we'll journey through the history, significance, and evolution of these mysterious beings that continue to captivate imaginations worldwide. From their ancient animistic origins to their modern pop culture incarnations, discover how yokai have served as explanations for the unexplainable, embodiments of cultural fears, and ultimately, as beloved cultural icons that bridge Japan's traditional past with its technological present. Yokai, written as in Japanese, emerged from the animistic beliefs of ancient Japan. Unlike the straightforward monster concepts found in Western traditions, yokai occupy a nuanced space between benevolent and malevolent forces. Early Japanese people attributed souls and consciousness to natural elements, objects, and unexplained occurrences around them. These supernatural entities became the perfect framework to explain unusual events, illnesses, natural disasters, and the unknown aspects of their world. The development of yokai beliefs is deeply intertwined with Shinto, Japan's indigenous religion, which recognizes the existence of kami, gods or spirits, in natural elements. Throughout Japanese history, the boundary between kami and yokai has often been fluid. Some entities that were originally worshipped as kami gradually transformed into more ambiguous yokai as religious practices evolved. This spiritual framework provided fertile ground for yokai to flourish in the Japanese collective imagination, as people already accepted the presence of supernatural forces in their daily lives. Japan's diverse geography gave rise to a rich tapestry of regional yokai variations. Coastal communities developed legends of water-dwelling creatures like the Ningyo, Japanese mermaids whose flesh was said to grant immortality to those who consumed it. Meanwhile, mountain villages told tales of tengu, the bird-like mountain spirits known for their long noses and supernatural powers. These regional yokai served important practical purposes. They were cautionary tales about local dangers, warning children against venturing too close to deep water where they might drown or wandering into dense forests where they could become lost. The specific characteristics of yokai often reflected the environmental challenges and daily concerns of different communities. Island regions had tales of sea monsters, agricultural areas featured crop-protecting or crop-destroying spirits, and snowy northern prefectures told stories of winter yokai. These local legends were passed down orally for generations, creating a rich mosaic of supernatural beliefs that varied significantly from one region of Japan to another, even while maintaining common thematic elements. The systematic documentation of yokai began in earnest during the Edo period, which lasted from 1603 to 1868. This era of peace and cultural flourishing in Japan saw ghost stories and supernatural tales become popular entertainment. The Haiku Monogatari Kaidenkai, or a gathering of 100 supernatural tales, emerged as a popular parlor game where participants would tell ghost stories by candlelight. After each tale, one candle would be extinguished until all 100 were out, supposedly summoning spirits in the darkness. This game reflected the Japanese fascination with the supernatural while also serving as a test of courage. The most significant contribution to yokai documentation came from Toriyama Sekien, an artist who lived from 1712 to 1788. Sekien published a series of illustrated encyclopedias of supernatural beings, including his famous The Illustrated Night Parade of 100 Demons, known as Gasu Hyaki Yagyo. These works catalogued hundreds of yokai, giving them specific names, appearances, and behaviors. Sekien's work was influenced by earlier scrolls depicting the Night Parade of 100 Demons, which dated back to the Muromachi period of 1336 to 1573. What makes Sekien's contribution particularly remarkable is that he didn't merely record existing folklore, he invented many yokai himself, blurring the line between documentation and creative mythology. This tradition of yokai creation continues in Japanese culture to this day. Among the most famous yokai is the kappa, a water-dwelling creature with a distinctive bowl-like depression on its head that must remain filled with water to maintain its power. Despite its somewhat childlike appearance, with a turtle-like shell and green or blue skin, the kappa has a sinister reputation. Traditional folklore describes them as drowning swimmers and removing a mythical organ called the shirikodama from their victims' anuses. However, kappa are not entirely malevolent creatures. They are known for their strict adherence to etiquette and can be pacified by bowing, which causes them to spill the water from their heads, weakening them. Some communities near rivers maintained kappa temples where offerings were made to prevent attacks. Legends also tell of kappa sharing valuable medical knowledge with humans, particularly regarding bone-setting techniques. This complex nature, simultaneously dangerous and beneficial, is characteristic of many yokai, who rarely fit into simple categories of good or evil. The kappa represents the dual nature of water itself in Japanese culture, essential for life but potentially deadly, deserving both respect and caution. The Nurikabe represents one of the more conceptual yokai in Japanese folklore. It appears as an invisible or sometimes wall-like entity that impedes travelers at night, making it impossible for them to reach their destination. This yokai cannot be climbed over or circumvented. The only way to pass is to strike its lower portion with a stick or to knock on it in specific places. The Nurikabe perfectly embodies the disorientation of nighttime travel in pre-modern Japan, when roads were unmarked, forests could be impenetrably dark, and travelers often lost their way. More than just a physical obstacle, the Nurikabe represents the psychological barrier of fear itself, the way that anxiety can paralyze a person and prevent progress. This yokai serves as a metaphor for the limitations of human perception and the mind's tendency to create obstacles when navigating unknown territories. Unlike more visually distinctive yokai, the Nurikabe's power lies in its invisibility and the frustration it causes, making it a perfect embodiment of the unseen forces that early Japanese people believed could affect human fate and travel. The Tsukumogami represent one of the most distinctive categories of yokai, ordinary household objects that have acquired sentience and supernatural powers after existing for 100 years. These living artifacts reflect the deeply animistic worldview of traditional Japanese culture, where even inanimate objects could potentially develop souls through long association with humans. Famous examples include the Karakasa obake, an old umbrella that develops one eye and hops around on a single leg, and the bakesori, a living sandal that scampers about at night. The concept of Tsukumogami served multiple cultural purposes. First, they reinforced the practical value of not wasting resources. Mistreated objects might return to seek revenge on negligent owners. Second, they reflected the Japanese aesthetic appreciation for aged items, which were seen as gaining character and potentially spiritual significance over time. Third, they embodied the belief that human energy and intention could be transferred to objects through use, eventually granting them a form of life. The Tsukumogami stories also contain elements of humor and whimsy, as these household items often behave in comically human ways, expressing emotions like joy, mischief, or indignation. These yokai demonstrate how supernatural beliefs in Japan often blended fear with playfulness, creating entities that were as endearing as they were uncanny. The Naparabo represents one of the most psychologically disturbing yokai in Japanese folklore. This entity initially appears as a completely normal human, often someone familiar to the victim, like a friend or family member. The encounter seems ordinary until the moment when the Naparabo removes or wipes away its face, revealing a smooth, blank surface where features should be. Unlike many other yokai, the Naparabo typically doesn't harm victims physically. Instead, it causes extreme psychological terror through its shocking revelation. The horror of the Naparabo lies in its subversion of the familiar. It embodies the fear that those we trust might not be who they appear to be, that beneath the face of the known lurks something unknowable and alien. Some scholars interpret these faceless spirits as metaphors for the masks of social propriety that all humans wear in public life. In a society like Japan's, which has historically placed great emphasis on proper social behavior and maintaining appearances, the Naparabo represents the anxiety that social facades might suddenly drop, revealing emptiness beneath. Tales of the Naparabo often involve travelers or people in transitional spaces, reflecting the vulnerability we feel when outside our familiar environments, where we depend on the reliability of social cues and recognizable faces. While belief in yokai as literal beings has diminished in modern Japan, their cultural influence remains profound. The 20th century saw a remarkable revival of interest in these supernatural creatures, largely through the work of scholars and artists. No one was more influential in this revival than Mizuki Shigeru, whose manga series Jujutsu no Kitaro introduced yokai to new generations of Japanese people. Mizuki, who had a lifelong fascination with folklore, created stories that featured traditional yokai alongside original creations, preserving ancient legends while making them accessible to modern audiences. Contemporary Japanese media frequently features yokai, from Hayao Miyazaki's Studio Ghibli films like Spirited Away to video games like Nioh and the wildly popular children's franchise Yokai Watch. This modern interpretation often transforms traditionally frightening creatures into cute mascots or complex characters with rich backstories, reflecting changing cultural attitudes toward the supernatural. What's particularly interesting is that new yokai continue to be created even today. The Sajinbi, a spirit appearing as a fireball in a cemetery, was invented in the 1980s but is now considered traditional by many. More recently, urban legends have given rise to modern yokai like Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouthed woman who asks victims if they think she's beautiful before revealing her mutilated face, and Teke Teke, the upper half of a woman who drags herself along on her elbows making a Teke Teke sound. These modern creations reflect contemporary anxieties just as traditional yokai reflected the fears of earlier generations. The tourism industry has embraced yokai as valuable cultural assets, with several regions in Japan actively promoting their local yokai legends to attract visitors. Mizuki Shigeru's hometown of Sakai Minato has transformed itself into a yokai destination, featuring a street lined with bronze statues of his yokai characters. Visitors can follow a yokai-themed walking route, collect stamps at various points of interest, and purchase an endless array of supernatural souvenirs. Similarly, Miyoshi in Hiroshima Prefecture celebrates its connection to the kappa with themed attractions, statues, and local specialties supposedly favored by the water creatures. These commercial applications demonstrate how ancient folklore can be repurposed to serve modern economic needs while simultaneously preserving cultural heritage. Yokai-themed festivals have become popular events throughout Japan, drawing domestic and international tourists alike. The Hyaki Yagyo, or Night Parade of 100 Demons, has been transformed from a fearsome supernatural event into a celebratory parade in several cities, with participants dressing as various yokai in elaborate costumes. Local businesses create yokai-themed food, drinks, and merchandise, while museums and cultural centers host exhibitions of yokai art both ancient and modern. This commercialization might seem at odds with the original fearsome nature of many yokai, but it actually continues a long tradition of adapting these supernatural concepts to serve contemporary cultural needs. As Japan continues to export its popular culture globally, yokai have found new audiences worldwide. International fans of anime, manga, and Japanese video games often develop a fascination with these uniquely Japanese supernatural beings, leading to greater cross-cultural appreciation. Western game developers, filmmakers, and artists have increasingly drawn inspiration from yokai, incorporating elements of these Japanese spirits into their own creative works. This global interest has created a feedback loop, with international attention reinforcing the cultural value of yokai within Japan itself. What makes yokai particularly effective as cultural ambassadors is their ability to be simultaneously culturally specific and universally relatable. While they are distinctly Japanese in their origins and characteristics, they speak to universal human experiences of fear, wonder, and the desire to explain the unexplainable. A kappa might be uniquely Japanese in its details, but the concept of dangerous water spirits exists in many cultures. The faceless Naparabo taps into universal fears of deception and lost identity. This balance between cultural specificity and universal themes allows yokai to transcend cultural boundaries, creating points of connection between Japanese traditions and global audiences. In academic circles, yokai studies have become a legitimate field of research, with scholars from around the world examining these supernatural entities through the lenses of anthropology, religious studies, art history, and comparative mythology. This scholarly interest further legitimizes yokai as significant cultural phenomena worthy of serious study rather than mere superstition. Studying yokai offers valuable insights into Japanese history, psychology, and social dynamics. These supernatural beings have served various important functions throughout the centuries. First, they provided explanations for natural phenomena in a pre-scientific world. Sudden illnesses, strange sounds, disappearances, or unusual weather could all be attributed to the actions of specific yokai, making the unpredictable world seem more comprehensible. Second, yokai stories enforce social norms and appropriate behavior. Children who wandered too far from home might encounter dangerous spirits, while adults who broke social taboos could face supernatural consequences. The threat of yokai served as an effective deterrent against socially disruptive behavior. Third, these supernatural entities gave expression to collective fears and anxieties. The shape-shifting tanuki and kitsune, fox spirits, reflected fears of deception and social infiltration in close-knit communities where trust was essential. Water-dwelling yokai embodied the dangers of drowning in a nation dependent on fishing and coastal resources. Fourth, yokai provided entertainment and strengthened community bonds through shared storytelling. Ghost story gatherings were social events that reinforced cultural values while allowing for creative expression. The transformation of yokai from objects of genuine fear to beloved cultural icons mirrors Japan's journey from a pre-modern society to a technological powerhouse that still maintains strong connections to its traditional past. In contemporary Japan, yokai have become vehicles for nostalgia, connecting modern Japanese people to their cultural heritage while adapting to reflect new social concerns. Yokai represent one of the world's most diverse and enduring supernatural taxonomies. Unlike many folkloric traditions that have faded with modernization, yokai have continually evolved while maintaining connections to ancient Japanese spirituality and worldviews. Their persistence demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of supernatural folklore, showing how traditional belief systems can find new relevance in changing cultural contexts. In contemporary Japan, yokai serve as cultural touchstones that connect people to their heritage without requiring literal belief in the supernatural. They provide a shared vocabulary of images and concepts that can be constantly reinterpreted to address new social concerns and artistic needs. The enduring appeal of yokai lies partly in their ambiguity. Unlike the clear moral divisions often seen in Western monster traditions, yokai exist in a more nuanced space. They can be harmful or beneficial, frightening or comical, ancient or newly created. This flexibility has allowed them to remain relevant across centuries of dramatic social and technological change. As Japan continues to navigate the balance between tradition and innovation, yokai serve as perfect symbols of this cultural balancing act, entities with ancient roots that continue to find new expressions in the modern world. Their journey from fearsome explanations of the unknown to beloved cultural ambassadors reflects the broader transformation of Japanese society, while their continued creation and reinvention suggest they will remain relevant for generations to come. Yokai stand as remarkable testaments to the enduring power of supernatural folklore and human culture. From their origins in ancient animistic beliefs to their current status as global pop culture phenomena, these Japanese spirits have continuously evolved while maintaining their essential connection to the human experience of mystery and wonder. They represent a uniquely Japanese approach to the supernatural, one that embraces ambiguity and transformation rather than rigid categorization of good versus evil. Through centuries of cultural change, yokai have served as explanations for the unexplainable, embodiments of social fears, enforcers of community norms, and vehicles for creative expression. Today, as they find new audiences through anime, manga, games, and tourism, they continue to bridge the gap between Japan's traditional past and its technological present. The story of yokai reminds us that supernatural beliefs are not simply primitive superstitions to be discarded, but complex cultural systems that adapt to serve changing human needs. In their journey from fearsome spirits to beloved cultural icons, yokai demonstrate how traditional folklore can remain vibrant and relevant in the modern world when given room to grow and transform. As long as humans continue to wonder about the boundaries between the known and unknown, creatures like the kappa, the naparabo, and the tsukumogami will continue to captivate our imaginations and provide us with ways to explore the mysteries that still surround us, even in our scientific age. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for updates. Your feedback is appreciated. We hope to see you again.